Board of Commissioner meeting to order. I invite you to stand and say the Pledge of Allegiance with me. I
pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you all for coming tonight. And I need an approval for the agenda. Is there anything you want added to the agenda, Scott?
Nothing, Mr. Chairman.
Okay. With that, I need a motion to approve the agenda as printed.
So I'll make it. I'll second.
Okay. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Before we go to public comment, I just want to say that if anyone is here to talk about their property valuation, Tom and Brian are here and are available here or across the hall to answer your questions and explain the process. So you don't have to sit through everything else. If you want that to get taken care of, you can do that now. Okay. With that, we'll move to public comment. Those wishing to speak must state their name and address for the record. After they are acknowledged by the board chair, each person will be limited to 2 minutes to make his or her remarks. Speakers will address all comments to the board as a whole and not one individual commissioner. The board may not take action on an item presented during the public comment period unless the item is already on the agenda for action. When appropriate, the board may refer inquiries and items brought up during public comment period to the county administrator for follow-up. Excuse me. Is there someone wishing to make public comment?
My name is Gavin Torrey. My address is 401 Havana Road, Owatonna, Minnesota. You want the phone number?
No.
Okay. I'm here to make a couple of comments about the proposed rental increase for the Steele County Community Center. I've been able to talk to a number of you individually. Haven't been able to reach some of you. I would suggest setting up mailboxes for your phones. That would be very helpful. And I will keep this brief. And while I agree that the insurance and a modest increase in rental fee for the community center is probably justified, I object to the drastic increase that's been proposed. The increase is over 300%. It's going from $125 a day to a proposed $400 a day plus insurance for the group or individual. My concern is for what I'll call, for lack of a better term, the little people who rent the Steele County Community Center. The people, the families that have little homes and limited means, or those who have large families and want to celebrate together. The crafters and hobbyists who want to gather and share their love of craft or hobby with others. And clubs or groups that have modest dues or minimal finances and others. This facility is used by 4-H, it's used by the county. You have to provide a place for them anyway. Your renters are extra. You have to keep the building anyway. And I put down some comments that I've made. I won't take up the time now, but I will leave these here for you. And I have all my contact information if anyone wants to talk to me further.
Thank you, Gavin. Anyone else wishing to speak?
Roger Wasik, still at 646 East Vine. Just a little bit of repeat because I keep hearing this in conversation. The February 25th Steele County Times article, Solar Power on the Rise in Owatonna, had a major inaccuracy. An inaccuracy that I've often heard in conversation. I'm saying that in the article, it can take 20 to 25 years to break even, and that's about the life of the equipment. It's total energy science nonsense. After a written response to Owatonna People's Press, Owatonna Public Utilities, this inaccurate statement was repeated in the June 2023 Owatonna Public Utilities newsletter. There are a few arrays that may not break even before the expected lifespan of 25 years. Maybe Jared, the Owatonna Public Utilities newsletter article author defines 25-year expected lifespan as only operating at 88% of nameplate power output. My LG solar module, solar panels are warranted for an actual output of at least 87% of the nameplate power output specified on the module after 25 years. The output decreases by less than 0.5% output per year. That's an expected lifespan of 200 years, a long way from 25 years. Solar cells having been around for over 50 years to observe degradation, the written 25-year warranty is pretty ironclad. With that repeated, please forward me any legitimate studies / data on solar cell degradation. No opinions, please. In the written follow-up page for Owatonna Public Utilities Manager Roger Will, I requested a county spot in Owatonna Public Utilities customer update newsletter with article about the ground source heat pump at the jail and why we can't afford to operate, according to a county commissioner, the ground source heat pump for space heating. I will volunteer to write, or at least assist in writing an article for the county spot in Owatonna Public Utilities customer update newsletter about the heat pump at the jail. Thank you.
Thank you, Rick. Anyone else wishing to speak? Mary?
Mary Cronin, 567 Forest Line in Medford. I also am concerned about the increase of the community center price from $125 to $400 a day. So I'm just, that's a big jump. I understand if you want to increase it. I'm guessing you are on the low side. We've appreciated it for 40 years. So, but from $125 to $400 is almost cost prohibitive for small groups to rent that, including ours. So
Okay.
that's my concern.
Thank you for the comments. Anyone else wishing to speak? Matt?
Good evening, Matt Sennett, 2519 Stony Creek Drive, here to talk about the Owatonna East Side Corridor Project. Avoid, minimize, and mitigate. This is the preferred strategy for construction projects in areas that impact citizens and businesses as outlined by MnDOT. So let's break it down as it pertains to the East Side Corridor Project. There seems to be no talk of avoidance whatsoever. 34th Avenue is the obvious choice for the East Side Corridor Project, but based upon some tabletop exercises, that has been ruled out for citizens of Owatonna. Officials say it's too far. So I'd like to know where the data is on that. Have there been documented interviews, studies? We're a year and a half into this, and I have yet to see any of these made publicly available. So then we move to minimize. There also seems to be very little talk of that. Our city and county officials seem to be hung up on a small swath of land next to many backyards of established large neighborhoods, and that's not minimizing the impact by trying to put a highway there instead of a residential street, which was planned there. Next up, mitigation. Occasionally this comes up, save for the fact that the assistant county engineer stated that if it were up to him, no mitigations would be put in for citizens who live on this proposed roadway for a highway. So I'm here tonight to express my frustrations and others that the East Side Corridor project seems far from following the MnDOT guidance here. Let's go back to avoid. Though many city and county officials use the mantra, we must wait for the study to come back, in referring to having conversations about the location for this East Side Corridor, it sure seems like officials are stuck on 29th Avenue, which is right next to these neighborhoods. In fact, it was mentioned over and over again in a most recent city council meeting last Tuesday, instead of being mentioned as the East Side Corridor. The county engineer mentioned multiple times that 29th Avenue is the preferred route, though again, the study isn't back, so how do we know that? But anytime conversations or questions come up about the East Side Corridor, alternatives or mitigations, we're quickly confronted with, we don't know any details yet, the study hasn't come back. Another point of contention between you, the city, and your constituents is the inconsistency in messaging between meetings. Up until 2 weeks ago, the message to constituents has been the study has been narrowed to 29th Avenue particularly. And in the city council meeting last week, you can imagine the surprise of residents in attendance to find out that there's 5 possible alternatives now back in play in the study. Of course, this was quickly followed up by verbal affirmations that 29th Avenue is the preferred route. These are concrete examples of the frequent inconsistency and lack of communication by county officials cited time and time again by residents. We expect more honesty and communication from our elected officials as they are our appointees, and after all, it's our tax dollars that are paying for these. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Anyone else wishing to speak? So,
Melissa Zimmerman, 2525 Stony Creek Drive, also East Side Corridor. We all agree a north-south corridor is needed. The question is, how do we safely build the highway to minimize impacts? As commissioners, you hold the power to make decisions and shape this project. We are here as representatives of a substantial number of constituents who are asking you to represent their concerns. For more than a year and a half, we have been requesting conversations to address the safety concerns of the East Side Corridor at 29th Avenue. We proposed an alternative solution that could resolve these issues, yet it has been dismissed without studies. Why? Today, a few have willingly engaged in this conversation, but others have shown a disinterest in understanding our concerns. While the suggestion to wait for the environmental report to come back is heard, delaying discussions until then leaves a limited 30-day timeframe for realistic conversations. Once that environmental report comes back, the clock starts ticking, and swift actions are required for comments, public hearings, responses, and project approval. We seek proactive conversations, not the final answer. You have the power to make decisions, address our safety concerns, and represent us at the table to voice our concerns. Engaging in conversations is vital to understanding both perspectives, the reasons behind concerns, and finding ways to address them, to ensure informed decisions are made. We are advocating for an East Side corridor that prioritizes safety. The current plan not only lacks safety and logic, it consistently contradicts state and federal guidelines. Since day one, we have raised concerns with recommendations aligning with state guidelines only to be met with constant refusal. The fundamental premise of this project was to preserve a right-of-way, yet the city has been building on that right-of-way for the last 2 decades. The proposed highway design not only disregards safety, but encroaches on residents' properties. We are spending taxpayer funds to study feasibility of building on land where residential homes already exist. Discussion about these fundamental issues should have happened before conducting environmental reports, not after. Let's pivot the project's tone towards an open conversation. Making informed decisions requires engaging in both sides of the issue. Thank you for your attention on behalf of multiple existing subdivisions.
thank you, Lisa. Is there anyone else wishing to speak today? Okay, with that, we will move on.
Regarding the levy budget, Melissa Zimmerman, 2525 Stony Creek Drive. Are there any monies going for the East Side corridor in that levy?
If it wasn't in transportation, yeah.
Would that have been in 2023? No.
When we decide to build that road, will that have a levy that goes with it? Will that increase the levy?
Well, that would be to be determined because, try and get as much state funding program as possible. So we have to wash that all out to see where it needs to be. So.
Ideally, you do projects where you can afford them, just like everybody else. We're not out trying to over levy or bond for projects like that. I think the consensus here is we'd like to be able to have those dollars available when those projects come our way.
So that we wouldn't have to add additional cost of the levies?
Or at least be able to come back to the public and say, hey, we've got this much set aside for a major project. We only have to bond or levy for this much of it.
Okay.
We try to be as fiscally responsible as we can with funding that you people provide.
Right.
But it just, we'll have to wait and see where that whole thing washes out and see if, they're working on getting a lot of it, trying to get a lot of that proposed project under the state aid highway program. Then that opens up a whole nother avenue of funding. They already got some federal funding for part of it. So it's just a process. It's just like waiting for the environmental study. It's kind of that same process and they just take forever.
Right, no, just hearing all the property tax concerns, I was like, are we going to increase that again because of building a road?
Yeah, so our highway department has a pretty healthy reserve, not that big, but so there'll be a lot of different pieces that go into that puzzle at the time that gets funded. So, okay. Yeah.
So with the whole debacle with not having the right permits for the roundabout on 18th Street and 218, How much more is that gonna cost the taxpayers after that whole bid was thrown out? Because the original bid for the project, the way I understand it, was thrown out, and it was pretty much a time material deal. After the fact, I mean, is that gonna be public knowledge on what that's gonna, the overages on that's gonna be for?
Well, everything's public knowledge.
I know, but is it gonna come out, I mean, I don't know.
I don't know the final tally, Paul, I don't know if you can speak to that tonight or not. That's not the agenda item, however, the question was asked. We don't know yet, do we? Or-
Bids have not been thrown out. Hazelton was a low bidder. They got the bid. There's
But there are gonna be overages because of the time wasted, I'm sure.
some of there are some changes to the time delays, but the vast majority of any change orders are not related to the time issues. So project's pretty close to budget as far as I remember at this point. But
Yeah, there's a lot of misinformation out there about not right permits, and you hear it coming from every direction. It's not
Well, the
legit.
permit was applied for through the railroad, but it wasn't in hand, the way I understand it, right? That's what the holdup was, right? Yes or no?
Well, this isn't a...
Why isn't it time or place?
Paul, you want to talk to that? Because it's not an agenda item, and it's not what we're here to talk about tonight.
Mr. Chair, do we want to talk about this, Mr. Chair?
We did have a transportation meeting where we could chat about that, but if you want to call Paul, he can certainly talk to you.
That would be my suggestion, is you call up there. Because it's not on the agenda. And
There certainly will be some cost overruns, there's no doubt, as there are in a lot of projects. That wasn't the ideal situation, that may have pushed the project down.
But don't you usually get the permit before you start a project?
Good. Call Paul.
I think we're making some assumptions that there were permits, so let's just wait, iron that out.
Just start it and
I got another question on it. I didn't write down another small parcel to talk about.
We need to close the public hearing. Do I need a motion to do that? Okay. Is there a second? Second. Those in favor of closing the public hearing, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Now we're looking for a motion to approve 4.9% levy increase. Resolution to approve the 2024 levy of $29,394,452. Budget of $67,084,528. Levy increase of 4.9%. Is there a second for that resolution? Any other discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. With that, motion to adjourn.